Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
I go to Army Physical Therapy School. So Army has a program with Baylor University. And with my kinesiology background, I thought, well, hey, if I can't stay in uniform as a combat arms front lines guy, can I go become a physical therapist? And the Army now has PTs in every battalion, which is, it's a lot. So they use PTs a lot. That didn't work out. It was kind of during a drawdown era with President Obama at that time. And so I went through the med board, which for those that don't know, just means that they basically determined that even though I was healthy enough to show up at work, I would have been a potential liability if I deployed, was really the easiest way to explain it. That once I went on certain medications, the medications alone made me non-deployable, because if I couldn't take them, that's really how it went. And so in that time, though, my battalion commander let me lead our medics, the Brigade Engineer Battalion at the time, which doesn't make we had 25 or so medics assigned to us, but there was no medical service officer.
Right.
So it was actually just an oversight, we think, from the person that realigned these battalions. So he let me, even as an engineer officer, basically manage structurally our medics. And I never had any interest really in medical school or medical anything, but it was during that time I got to work liaison with our hospital, make sure our unit, 600 person unit, was ready to deploy and other stuff. So I got to learn. I wasn't like doing sutures and injecting people, but it actually helped me get into the future medical schools I applied to. My final officer evaluation report was as a medical service officer, which again, no plans of mine, didn't plan to do it, but it opened me up to, and a few people that wrote letters of recommendation for me came from that experience. So yeah, limited combat time, limited time in general in the military, but really grateful for each of the steps.
But we circle back to God's plan again, right? God's will. So that's cool. Okay. So you make a decision to go to medical school. Where do you go and why?
Oh, man. So yeah, I was up in Washington, and I do believe, looking back, 8-10 years later, that this guy named Zach Abrams in my unit. He ended up really mentoring me. He was a few years older than me, a 2010 West Point grad, so senior when I was a freshman. We never met at school, but out there, he really took me under his wing, and he ended up helping me start read the Bible for myself, start living a life that was more focused on faith than definitely I was before. And that's what actually led me to San Diego, and I'll share that part. But I decided to go to medical school in part because I met a really good osteopathic doctor. So there's medical doctors, DOs, and NDs, naturopathic doctors. I knew nothing about naturopathic doctors, still don't. No, I'm just kidding. But I learned a lot. But I really viewed MDs and DOs as the two main doctors. Little known fact, I think about 10% of physicians in the US are DOs, maybe more now, and about 25% in the military are DOs. So the Army seems to attract a lot of osteopathic doctors. And it doesn't mean orthopedic. They're similar. There's a lot of DOs that do go into orthopedic medicine, but in the philosophy, osteopathic medical schools are more holistic in their, at least, philosophy. There's many schools that aren't, and there's some medical schools that are more holistic, you could say, in what they offer. But in general, MDs, kind of what everyone thinks of, DOs, now mostly what people think of MDs, and a mix of a little bit more osteopathic manipulative medicine, so hands-on care, a little bit more roots medicine, meaning like looking at the body as a whole. So I had a really great DO who was in the pain management center at Madigan Army Medical Center. Not an Army doctor, he was a civilian, but he was what we would call a biohacker also, doing a lot of the more out there at the time, bulletproof coffee, methylene blue, these other things that now are pretty popular. I started learning about them, and he exposed me to certain podcasts, and so this other doctor actually, and they helped me start just learning that, hey, there were a lot of other ways to treat the body than other than, because at the point I was at, I was on Humira, Remicade, Entyvio, methotrexate, prednisone, 6-MP, probably another 5 medications that we worked through, and none of them worked for me,
Wow.
which again, now looking back, I'm grateful. Obviously at the time, I didn't get healthy from any of them. Prednisone would put out the fire for a while. That's like a corticosteroid that just goes in and turns off inflammation, but it also has a lot of negatives if you stay on it long term. It's going to be a miracle short term, but it can be pretty devastating long term. These doctors started pointing me towards nutrition, towards lifestyle, towards biohacking, towards I ended up getting a fecal transplant in this process, and that was years later, but it did shift my gut microbiome enough to get me off a lot of those meds. And so long story short, I moved to San Diego planning to go to Virginia for osteopathic medical school. Because of that great DO, he really convinced me, even though I met a few NDs, naturopathic doctors, the only thing I didn't want to be was a medical doctor, an MD. And looking back, it was a little bit short-sighted, but or narrow-minded, I should say. Now I have appreciation for every type of degree. I see all healers and great doctors of every type. I see people that maybe aren't great in all those fields too.
Yeah.
It's not the degree that makes the doctor. It's really, in my opinion, the training and the heart and the and what they do with it. So moved down here, planned to go to Liberty University for osteopathic school. I went through, took the MCAT, did all that stuff. As I was transitioning out, did some night classes, and moved down here in 2016. And while I was actually still getting out, I was trying to still stay in with that whole like mindset of there's a way I can serve. I know there's a way, but how it lines up with trying to get another degree is kind of hard. So came down here actually with the plan of doing a new medication that was available at Balboa Hospital through the military instead of what was available in Washington, called Entyvio. I mentioned that one earlier. It's a biologic that seems like a number of people with ulcerative colitis it was working with, but again, it didn't really help me. In that process, I met a doctor at the school I now graduated from, Bastyr University. So John Bastyr was a naturopathic doctor in the early 1900s. He founded a school in Seattle, him and some of his key students in the 70s. So that's been around for 50 years. They opened a California campus a few years before I moved here. So I ended up going there, and while I was actually had deferred. So in 2016, I officially got out of the Army. I deferred the osteopathic school that I got accepted to in Virginia, and I started at Bastyr, which was in the fall of 2016, 2 days after I got a fecal transplant at UC San Francisco, with not knowing if I could even sit through the classes with how sick I was and different things. But yeah, I moved down here and I was part of a military ministry called the Navigators. So that was a big part of my life at this point. Navigators is basically there's a group at most college campuses and most military bases at this point. That's a more of like a discipleship group where we kind of become older brothers or into other people, or vice versa, receive that kind of mentorship in faith and in life from others. And so I moved here to be part of the local expression of the Navigators, and yeah, really grateful. People took me in, let me live with them for way cheaper than it should be in Southern California. Even though that was planned to only be 6 months, once I got accepted to school, I put down a little bit more roots and ended up staying here for 4 years for that, and then did a residency here locally, and then worked at a few other practices over the last few years, and then just last year opened my own practice of naturopathic medicine here on Coronado called Trinity Naturopathic, and got married the year before that. So I know I'm skipping ahead, but that's how I ended up at the school I ended up at. And
It's all right. We're good. It's okay. You can skip. You're good. So you start your own practice. Talk about the mindset of starting your own practice. What was it that made you decide to do that?
Oof. So I met some of our mutual connections at my first clinic called Center for Health and Wellbeing. So Center for Health and Wellbeing, it was a special place in downtown Hillcrest, Makers Hill area. I think it opened for about 25 years, and some great doctors, great patients passed through there, if I might say so myself now. But I mean, the reason I went there was because there was medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, licensed marriage therapists, just an amazing team, a 3-story building of healing, really. People, we took their insurance, we saw underserved patients that would have never seen maybe a higher end concierge functional medicine doctor. And that really, in part, I was a patient there for a while because they took TRICARE, and it helped me get some of the care that I needed. And that was one of the big things that attracted me, is that because we were downtown, not up north, which I love North County too, but a lot of my colleagues did migrate up there. One, because our school is up there, and two, because having that access to Orange County and just North County is great, but I knew I was supposed to be down south mainly because of the military, or the Navy specifically, and yeah, downtown it was really cool to be around Hillcrest. I learned a lot. And to answer your question, why did I start a private practice? After that clinic closed, unfortunately, recently. The head doctor sold it, and it didn't quite stick with his roots. But learning there for 2.5 years showed me how much value there was in a larger team, a medical, really holistic place that we could get healing, even if it wasn't from a medical doctor, even if it wasn't what people would expect. So my hope with the private practice Trinity, one was because my hope is to create something that's similar in that. Sorry. And the other one is that Coronado really doesn't have a functional medicine naturopathic thriving clinic. There's one great naturopathic doctor that works right in front of us, and he's been really supportive. There is one medical doctor that is more integrative minded, but there's people think of this as a little bubble over here. But once we moved here, me and my wife, we just saw the need. We saw that there's people who really needed it, and the biggest need being that we're a 1/4 mile from Naval Amphibious Base. We're 1/2 mile from Naval Air Station. And, in part because of my own health journey, I feel really passionate about helping other young military families. And we've been able to do that in a great way, I would say, in part because of the location. And so it was the location. And then I do believe from the Lord also, my wife saw how much I was doing kind of just outside of my actual day job practice for young guys like this, and neighbors. And it's a joke, but outside of our our apartment here, our condo here, I'd be running outside at night to hand people a supplement or to adjust their neck, or no, I wouldn't do that. But just things that, like, I needed an office space to actually do. And so I did start my private practice technically in 2022 on paper, more so to have I did some video consults for people that, other military friends that were around the country, while still in residency in different places that maybe we couldn't easily treat them locally. And so I already had the business set up, but I didn't have the support. So my wife, Sage, she is uniquely gifted in all things administrative. She's actually at the clinic now, manning it. And with our new doctor, which we'll talk about, we brought in a new, younger naturopathic doctor that just started there. And she was a practice manager at a animal hospital up until this, and she still is working there, but she learned how to do all the ordering and the scheduling and the billing and all the things that keep most young entrepreneurial doctors from really thriving, because they spend so much time doing that instead of getting to do what they were trained to do. So really grateful. That's really, without her, it wouldn't make sense without someone that can really do that level of all that stuff. I still make a lot of business decisions, of course, but my hope is that they're in line with what my patients need, with what the Lord wants of me and us. And yeah, that's why the private practice. It was not the plan. I will tell you, even when we got married in 2023, just a year and a half ago, we weren't like, okay, let's go into business. Let's start a practice together. Let's do it 2 blocks from our house where we live now. It was more out of necessity and just trying to listen to what was needed.
Gotcha. So I have a question for you. So a friend of mine came to you and you helped her tremendously. And that's how you and I met. And she mentioned to me that you work with Navy SEALs, and that Navy SEALs go out and they train and they deploy and they do all their things, right? and they come back and they need to be put back together, basically, physically. And she basically told me that that's something you do. Can you talk about how you do that?
Yes, I can. Okay, I'd say the most basic thing that applies to them and to me and to you, but to our mutual friends also, the body was designed to heal.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that. I believe that we were designed by God. It's in our nature. It's our capital N. Naturopathic medicine is truly that belief that, short of, yes, there are certain genetic conditions, there are certain things that really, and there are certain injuries that it's harder to heal from. But if we give the body the right conditions for chronic issues, we often can and will see healing. And
Sure.
and that's what I'm seeking every day to get into alignment with. So how does that apply? So what I really like about our clinic, and I think it's true. I mean, I know a lot of great naturopathic chiropractors, all kinds of classes that some people call what we do slow medicine, and
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with that because I've seen people get changed, healed, in an instant. So I would say we're setting the conditions to see someone could get healed or receive abundant health in a minute, in an instant. Even from a treatment we do, not just from a miracle, which I see that too, but with my military specifically, oftentimes sleep is a big one for everyone, but helping them sleep, helping them get back on a good sleep schedule. I do blood work on pretty much all my patients. I look at all the same markers that a regular family medicine, annual checkup would look at.
Mm-hmm.
But we always look at hormones, not because I think that we all need to be on testosterone therapy or anything like that, but because hormones are one of the most measurable ways we can look at the signaling that I would say God intended to go from one part of the body to another to have an effect. And so if we
Mm-hmm.
can know generally what all your hormones look like, what your body composition, what your sleep, I do like sleep tracking. A lot of our military does wear, wearables like the Aura Ring or Whoop Band. So the cool thing about the health tracking devices is there's objective changes. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's really what I focus on. Not I do want people to feel better. I want them to their skin and hair and all these things get better or whatever. But my hope is that we see objective shifts. And so probably the biggest class of things that help me do that with military are peptide therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and then there are some regenerative joint techniques like PRP. I don't do as much of that. Our new doctor does PRP or platelet-rich plasma, where we take out your own blood, spin it down, and take out the growth factors specifically and put them back in the areas that need healing. I also do a good amount of intravenous therapy. So these are getting into the modalities of what we use, but
Mm-hmm.
the philosophy is really that
Yeah.
and my hope. I do meet a lot of people now that even want to join the military, and that's been life-giving. That's been encouraging because if I can help someone even before they join or when they're brand new, just like where I was,
Mm-hmm.
even though I was fit and I was fast as a racing, I was not healthy. Looking back, I was burning on both ends. I didn't really understand what stress was. I didn't know what heart rate variability was. Even being in performance psychology, I was exposed to a lot of that, but I didn't have a great diet. I was fueling myself. I didn't understand rest and recovery the way that we're called to. So the cool thing is now there is a lot more resources for these guys. So I just feel like I'm another resource, but I say
Yeah.
that I'm an expert in. There's a peptide called BPC 157, Body Protecting Complex 157. That is actually the thing 8 years ago that after I got a fecal transplant and started eating healthier and functional medicine stuff, certain supplements helped, but BPC 157 was the first. There's a peptide that actually seemed to heal my gut, like actually heal the epithelial layer of the gut, lower the inflammatory markers that were still existing with my condition, despite all the anti-inflammatory meds I was on. So that set me on a journey of peptides. So hormones are large signaling molecules that we just mentioned. Peptides are smaller molecules that really signal we're learning more about them every day. It's a pretty controversial topic. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are now patenting peptides because
Mm-hmm.
peptides mean a small chain of amino acids. We know there's about 7,000 or more that exist naturally in the human body that are being produced. Unlike hormones that we've kind of known how to test for 100 years or so, most of them, we don't necessarily know yet how to test for each of these small molecules. So we're learning every day they've become very popular. There's a lot of podcasts on them now and different resources. But again, just having started the journey about 8 years ago helped me realize that, hey, there's something to this. And it's very much, they're usually low risk, high potential. And they often stimulate a pathway in the body instead of suppressing or, blocking an enzyme or a pathway. So I think that's a long answer to your question, but how do we do it? I always usually start with, and the one way I change it up a little bit, a lot of my colleagues, and I love doing what are called in-depth functional medicine visits, where I go back and ask you like everything about your health. And those usually can be up to 3 hours, but usually an hour, hour and a half of time together, and then research on my end. I now start, especially to make it more affordable for my military, we start with what I call an optimization visit. No matter who you are, if I could be the healthiest, I could have gotten a 99 sleep score last night, hit my best run of the day. There's always an area to optimize for everyone. So I call it that because it kind of takes the stigma away of what is wrong with you versus the VA has been calling it. They've been saying it's not what's the matter with you, it's what matters to you. So I try to learn in that optimization 30-minute first visit what matters to somebody, what the obvious place next step to help them in. And once we see momentum, inertia together, some people keep coming back, but we charge about $100 for that visit. I know, well, I'm confident that our team, myself and included, can leave someone better than we found them for $100. That's been, I would say, attractive to our young military that don't know if they can afford the type of care that we often offer. We would love to partner with more nonprofits and other places to make certain of things like this available, but we've just kind of gained people's trust with that, keeping the prices low, affordable, and we do certainly offer a military discount, but it's more than that. It's the trust, and that they know that sometimes in the military you feel like you shouldn't go to medical one, and if you do, you just get given ibuprofen anyway. So it's kind of like, why did I end up sitting and doing that the whole time? We're able to be that second opinion, that outside opinion that has I'm not going to go talk to their command. I'm not going to judge them.
That's the thing that holds them back, is their concern that there's going to be some sort of a stigma there, right? And that potentially it's going to affect their career. So that's where you become an alternative, somebody that they can come to and they can trust. So I apologize that we're running out of time, but if somebody wants to come see you or wants to talk with you for that consultation, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Trinity Naturopathic is our name. A lot of people are going with more catchy like Trinity Health, Trinity Wellness. We decided to call it naturopathic because we really do believe in the roots of the medicine, and there is some legal reasons. But Trinity Naturopathic, you can find us on Google and stuff. Our phone number is usually the best way to reach us on there. I'll post it, but that number I do look at, my team looks at. We do now have a new doctor, Dr. Autumn Dugas. Her husband is also ex-military, and they just moved here to Coronado. So we got a team growing. We have a great acupuncturist. We do have the IV therapy, but most of that's available information on our website. People can reach out through the website. There's a way to schedule directly. I think I'm booked out over a month. But if it's someone that messages us, I always have people fill out some forms. I read it over, and if try to get in people that need to get in sooner, or Dr. Autumn, like I said, her schedule is fairly open. So we have a great team. We got a few employees that are just the best, and they love treating and helping people of all types, and our military, especially veterans. And I say military, but I imply, I know, especially Marines, they say, if I ever say, oh, you were a Marine, no, they're like, no, I am a Marine. And that's how we view it too.
Once a Marine, always a Marine. Yeah,
exactly. And that's how we see it. It's a unique aspect of this area of Southern California, of Coronado. And I would just say a few other things. I mean, we are offering discounted or even free services for if anyone did relocate and is dealing with the fires right now in LA. We have some breathing treatments that can help, called glutathione, some other supplements that can be pretty helpful even without a truly in-depth visit. But yeah, reach out. The phone number is the best way. Call during business hours, or it is a text line, which is nice. So people can just say, hey, I'm interested, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And
we'll put that on your description on the episode so that people can just click on it and go. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been amazing, man. It's been really amazing. We're going to have you back, okay?
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate you, bud. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, Do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.